When you subscribe to WROK on YouTube, you never miss a meeting.
All right, I'm going to call to order the November 8th, 2021 Royal Oak City Commission meeting to order. We're going to begin with an invocation given by Commissioner Colo, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can stand, please do so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today, November 8th, is a special day in our history. Exactly 100 years ago today, voters went to the polls to decide our fate. Should we adopt a city charter and officially become the City of Royal Oak? With a vote of 922 for and 133 against, our young city was born. Elected that same day were some familiar names, including two different Don Darrows and a Lawson. Other names we know, like Campbell, came up just a bit short. People had spoken and were ready to start the next chapter of our history. The early 20s saw great growth in our town, with a rapidly changing landscape. Our young municipality started small, not much more than the downtown and a small chunk of land from 10 Mile to Gardenia. We annexed nearly all the remaining 10 square miles of land that we now call home in the 1920s. As most of you probably know, the founder of our city, Orson Starr, was famous for his cowbells. And then we definitely needed more cowbell for all the farms we had. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Colo.
And then in the 20s, we had started to transform from farmland into neighborhoods with paved roads and parks, municipal services such as sewer and water, and a dedicated police and fire system. These were all amenities we come to expect today, but were only starting to exist then. Change does not always come easy, but the will of the people will get us there. Much will change in the next 100 years. Just as farms turned into neighborhoods, or how department stores left our downtown to be replaced by small boutiques, our city will continue to evolve. What will be important, what will be vital to our growth will be good, thoughtful, and deliberative governance. I am proud to be part of a commission that set a positive vision for our community and then acted on those goals. With thoughtful leadership, the place we all call home is headed in the right direction. Government should be a place where people come together and no one gets left behind. So tonight, I hope we all remember that at the end of the day, we are all neighbors, all working for the common good of Royal Oak. We will not always agree on what is the right decision, nor the direction to go, but we are all here to ensure our next 100 years are even better than our first. And for that, I pray.
Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent invocation, Commissioner Colo. Worthy of a 100-year anniversary. All right. I see Representative Ellison here tonight. I was going to make a joke about him being around when the city was formed, but I think the city was, about 50 years old when you were born by that time? For those of you that don't know, Representative Ellison and I have a little jabbing back and forth for fun. All right, so this brings us to item 4, which is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? A motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Dubuc. Discussion on the agenda. All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We have an agenda. All right, this brings us to item 5, which is a presentation of the 2021 municipal election results.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm happy to report that the November 2nd, 2021 election ran smoothly with a 28.93% voter turnout. All results are available to view on the county's website at oakgov.com. The City of Royal Oak had plenty of election workers and no issues with the voting tabulators. Oakland County processed 7,304 of our absentee ballots. All absentee ballots that were received in on election day were sent to the precincts to be processed and counted. It was a successful day due to the team effort of election workers, the clerk's office staff, and also IT support.
Thank you, Ms. Hallis. Any questions for City Clerk? Commissioner Perush.
I don't know if this is on. There it
Oh,
just touch quickly.
there
There
we
it
go.
goes. It's my recollection that I think maybe 24 hours before the polls really open, there was a really, really large power outage in the city that it included at least Northwood Elementary School. And I think everybody in the neighborhood was holding their breath to make sure that the power went back on before the polls opened. It did. But were you holding your breath? Were you nervous?
Yes, I was texting our DPS supervisor to see if they had any additional generators we could use. So we were trying to get a backup plan in place that night. It was about, 11 o'clock that night.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened, whether it was a transformer. It was a huge area.
Yeah.
It's huge. Okay, well, good. I'm glad it all worked out.
I just have a quick question. I know that in the budget, we had ordered additional and different equipment to help with the election. So all of that arrived, everything ran smoothly. Did it make the election, I mean, from what I understand, other than a power outage, they were given, I mean, everything went to plan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, everything was good.
So those machines were very helpful?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Dubak?
Hey, Mayor. Thank you, City Clerk Collis, for another election very well run. You and your staff do an excellent job. I know you said we were just shy of 29%, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but my understanding is that's the highest turnout we've seen in a couple decades
Yes.
in a city election.
Yes.
So I think that's something to really be proud of as a community, that Royal Oakers, came out and took part in this election. And congratulations to all my colleagues for your overwhelming victories. I'm very pleased that I'll be serving with you for the remaining 2 years of my term.
Anybody else? Again, just thank you, Ms. Hallis, to you and your team. I mean, amazing job to all the poll workers that came out, to the county, all hands on deck, smooth election, high turnout. Usually I know you're doing your DFMEAs, looking for failures throughout the year and guarding for them and making sure they don't happen. So I think this is just another example of how well our clerk's office does. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a team effort for sure.
Absolutely. All right. So that is item 5. So this gets us to item number 6, public comment. Just a couple quick things before we jump into public comment. The City Commission values and relies on the input of our fellow residents to make decisions. Now is the time set aside for the public to address the City Commission on any city-related issues. As there are no public hearings scheduled for tonight, this will be the only time to address the City Commission. I ask that comments be directed to the Commission as a whole and not to individual commissioners. If you wish to speak tonight, wait till you're recognized by me, the mayor. Come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Please be mindful that we want to make sure that we hear from everyone who wishes to speak tonight, so comments are limited to 3 minutes. And there's a timer at the podium to help you keep track of your time. Typically, we don't respond directly to questions during public comment. However, we're writing them down, and when the topic comes up, we do our best to ask those questions and get them answered. If your item on public comment isn't on the agenda tonight, city staff or city manager is copiously taking notes to ensure that if those things require follow-up, it's done as well. And of course, if you don't wish to speak tonight, never hesitate to reach out to us via email. That's often the best way to get your voices heard and get a quick response on something even ahead of a meeting. So with that, who wishes to speak tonight? Mr. Ashley, come on up.
My name is Alan Ashley. I live at Royal Manor. Before I say anything, I'd like to thank the city clerk's office. We had a little problem with our elevator, went out. We have one under construction and one was good. The one that was good had a major problem. They came down and offered to pick up absentee ballots. I want to thank her for helping out on that. Into this month, we will finish all the ADA rooms. We will have 13 apartments ADA qualified. And that'll be nice. We already have people living in them, so those will all be taken care of. We will start putting new heating units in and after Thanksgiving. So everything, we have 2 things to do outside. One, a new Royal Oak Manor signage, and the other will be glassed in balconies. All the way up from 2nd floor all the way up to the 11th floor. So we will have a place that we can have meetings year round on our floors, have birthday parties and whatsoever. And that is coming along. So hopefully the plan is February, March, and that's still a go. And we're hoping that'll make. And one other thing, as I was walking here, and I'm going to attend the traffic meeting, I've been pushing to have stop signs on all the east-west streets from 6th Street all the way to 2nd, especially on 4th Street, where there's a light at Main and a light at Troy, and it's really tough walking across the street when cars are parked on both sides. Pedestrians almost have to walk out into the traffic area just to get past, and sometimes people don't stop. And there are no stop signs all the way through on William Street and on Troy. So, and they just knocked down the 2 houses on William Street, and they're starting excavation for that building. That means a 6-story apartment or condos are going to be built there. That means even more traffic going on those streets, walking to downtown. So if the city manager can push the traffic committee, I will try to be there at the next meeting to push to have stop signs on all the east-west going from Main Street to Troy, because there's nothing there, and it's really getting tough walking across the street, and especially in the wintertime between the lights on 4th Street. That's the worst. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. The building looks beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm gonna put bets on the color now. I feel comfortable. That's not primer.
No, that is a special epoxy paint that where they have 30 minutes to put it on, and then they have to throw the brushes and rollers away and start with fresh before
Yeah.
it hardens up.
I watched them out there one day. They were, bucket at a time, moving quick,
They have to mix it and then paint. It is not a fit, I'll relax and all that. No, they hustle.
Yeah, they sure did. Looks beautiful.
Thank you. Smell was terrible.
All right, who's next? Mr. Harrison, come on up, sir.
Thank you. I have to remove the face diaper. It's cold out and it fogs up my glasses. Bill Harrison, 2729 Trafford, Royal Oak. The former head of the Royal Oak Democrat Club recently posted a nasty message. In part, it says, a group of far-right activists ran a remarkably dishonest and unprincipled effort to seize control of the city government. He asks, where will they surface? He alludes to, quote, the myth of critical race theory, his words, not mine, while others are mumbling about housing density, which is the new N word. They will simultaneously complain about the high cost of housing and oppose any proposals to make housing more affordable. I ask, why is it that you socialists see everything through the prism of identity politics? I do not like the terms black and white. They imply polar opposites. The terms minority and majority may be less divisive, but why do we have to differentiate at all? Sadly, socialist sustainability is dependent on having groups of victims and permanent underclass. I am insulted by the allegation that my objection to increasing housing density in single-family areas is racially motivated. My objection is to your proposed effort to eliminate single-family zoning in Royal Oak. I have no objection to continuing the current practice of locating multiple housing on the mile roads, half-mile roads, and other areas that do not break up the integrity of the single-family areas. I further object to the intent to allow secondary dwellings such as garage apartments and granny cottages on single-family properties. I'm concerned about the proposed zoning changes on Woodward that will increase the allowable building height to 36 feet, reduce the parking to 1.3 spaces per dwelling, and I understand that there's elimination of setbacks adjacent to the neighborhood. All this was done without any notice to residents within 300 feet of the property, which is required. Laura and I, as well as our families, have always supported compassionate causes and behaviors. When seeking her third term as commissioner, she supported the human rights ordinance that was denied by the voters and cost her the election. During the beginning of the COVID crisis, You will recall that I reduced my rental rates to $1 for a period of 3 months. That was a quarter of my income for that year. Following the Depression, people had jobs, but no savings. My grandfather, as a sales manager for a Detroit real estate company, created a program in Michigan after the Depression where people could buy homes with no money down. And this program was the seed for what we know as the FHA. Laura's father, a photographer for the Detroit News, not only photographed the Battle of the Overpass, but was actually the impetus.
Mr. Harrison, I do need you to finish your last thought, sir.
Last sentence. Was actually the impetus for the battle when he asked Walter Reuther to get up on the overpass so he could get a better picture. The battle was instrumental in the formation of labor unions. Thank you. Any comments before I sit down?
No? Thank you,
I say
Mr.
that
Harrison.
because there's a couple of you that have a propensity to say things.
All
after
right,
I
who's
say-
next?
Thanks.
Anybody else wish to speak tonight? Going once, going twice. All right, we're going to bring the meeting back up to this side of the table, which brings us to item 7, the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull anything off the consent agenda to talk about independently? Okay, the consent agenda now consists of City Commission meeting minutes from October 25th, claims from November 2nd, 5th, and the November 5th special pay, approval of purchase orders, declaration disposal of surplus property, proclamation designation America Recycles Day, human resources request to fill vacancy, approval of restrictive covenant within easements 4600 Coolidge Highway, approval of special event permit downtown Winter Wonderland, an award of contract for fair housing testing services. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? A motion by Commissioner Perush. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion on the agenda item. Okay, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. That brings us to item 8, which is the Michigan Liquor Control Commission licensed establishment, Innovo Development Group, LLC, DBA, Pastel request for a new proposed plan of operation at 208 West 5th Street. Chief, you, I suspect?
Sorry?
Is this you?
This is me, yes.
Okay.
Mayor City Commission, we did receive a request from Innovo Development Group to review a new proposed plan of operation to be located at 208 West 5th. This Class C liquor license with Sunday...
Hey, Chief, sorry to interrupt. I think we're on these push-button mics now, so you might have to...
Is this better?
Is it the little green light going?
Yeah, my green light was on. Can you hear
Oh.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Does it stay on? Because your bright
It's on.
light on.
Yep. I could just yell if you want.
Well, I don't know if that'll pick up on the broadcast.
How about
Try this one.
Sorry.
That's
Oh, yeah.
that
Yeah,
was
this one sound better? No.
Oh, yeah, that's much better.
All right. All right, I'll start again. The Royal Oak Police Department has received a request from Innovo Development Group, LLC, to review a new proposed plan of operation be located at 208 West 5th Street. This Class C liquor license, including Sunday sales, outdoor service area, dance entertainment permit, is currently being held in escrow at this location. The applicants will be doing business as Pastel. Innovo Development Group is owned by Brian Mullally, Jay Gudebski, Richard Allman, and Pasquale Lamara. The applicants will spend, I guess they have spent about $600,000 on renovations, including substantial cosmetic updates and renovating the operating equipment. These funds have come from the business savings of the development group. Renovations have been taking place over the last few months, and the applicants are hoping to be open by the mid-December of 2021. The applicants will lease the building from Innovo Royal Oak LLC for $20,000 per month. Innovo Royal Oak LLC is an affiliate-owned company operated by the applicants, the former landlord of Hopcat. Brian Mullally, Jay Gudebski, and Richard Allman are commercial real estate developers. Collectively, they have been involved in business for many years and currently have real estate holdings in Michigan, Missouri, and Florida. Pasquale Lamara is an experienced restaurateur with over 20 years of experience in the industry. Mr. Lamara grew up in the restaurant industry as his parents owned and operated multiple restaurants. Mr. Lamara is the operator behind the several restaurants in Florida that were listed on the report. An LCC check of the businesses operated by Mr. Lamar revealed no violation history. We did contact the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulations and confirmed there are no reported complaints or violations on any of Mr. Lamar's establishments. We also contacted the Port St. Lucia Police Department, and Sergeant Reynolds from that department did indicate that Mr. Lamar's restaurants are very well run with responsible operators. Mr. Lamar will bring his own management team, which will oversee daily operations. Initially, this will consist of Mr. Lamar and his assistants, Joanna and Carmine Lamara. As operations become established, they will hire locally to build and train a permanent on-site management team. If approved, they will operate an Italian restaurant with full-service bar. This operation will also include a nightclub lounge on the second floor, including a dance floor. The requested hours of operation are Sunday from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m., Monday to Wednesday from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., and Thursday to Saturday from 12 p.m. to 2 a.m. The kitchen will be open until closing each night. Last call will be 30 minutes before closing. The menu will feature small plates, shareable soups, salads, entrees, pasta dishes made from scratch daily. The applicants anticipate the food-alcohol ratio to be 60 to 40%. 60% food, 40% alcohol. Pastel has approximately 14,000 usable square feet. The proposed interior seating will be for 245 patrons. A breakdown is included in the report, but this does represent a 132 seat reduction from Hopcat. Pastel is requesting 3 outdoor service areas, totaling 96 patrons. They will include 12 seats on the first floor outdoor service area and 2 outdoor service areas located on the 3rd floor rooftop. The rooftop service areas will be accessible through the retractable glass doors that separates the outdoor service area from the interior. The doors will be open weather permitting. Hopcat previously offered a total outdoor service for 118 patrons. Overall capacity will be set by the police department after recommendations from both the building and fire departments. The applicants are requesting an entertainment and dance permit. Pastel is requesting to have a DJ on Friday and Saturday evenings as well as during special events. Live music may be offered during special events as well. Pastel is requesting 1 dance floor on the 2nd floor. The dance floor will be approximately 375 square feet and will be located adjacent to the existing bar. The sound will be restricted to a level which will not adversely impact neighboring or adjoining property owners, and Pastel will comply with the provisions of the sound ordinance. There will be no music played in any of the outdoor service areas. The applicants have agreed to sign and strictly adhere to the city's entertainment and dance permits. Our findings indicate the applicants meet the necessary requirements to be granted this request. Mr. Lamar has successfully operated numerous restaurants with liquor licenses for many years without incident. The applicants have invested substantially in this venture and are committed to succeeding. The police department does not anticipate this request will cause any additional strain to police resources. If approved, the applicants will have to comply with all planning, zoning, building requirements and restrictions. As I stated earlier, this is the liquor license that was already at that location with Hopcat. So Rural Local Ordinance does require the City Commission to approve this new plan of operation. And Mayor and Commission, the applicants are here today.
Any questions for the chief? It's pretty straightforward. We often extend the privilege to the applicants to come up if you guys want to say a few words. Maybe about what you plan to do. No pressure.
After I heard the story about the cowbells, see, I almost kind of want to do my best Christopher Walken. I'm going to probably finish with that. Do I push the button here?
No, you don't have a time limit. You could just tell us a little bit about what you're doing. Maybe we'll throw a few questions at you, but,
cool.
you know.
Very cool. So we were asked to come and take a look at this area, and we came up here, and we really weren't sure because, you know, it was a distance, right, from Florida to here. When we came up here, we kind of fell in love with the area, right, and coming back, and we really said this is a great area, and what we do would fit perfectly in this community. And
as you said that you spoke to the Port St. Lucie Police Department, we're really dialed in our community in Port St. Lucie, and we intend to be very dialed in here. Just about anything that the city or the county needs, we're always the first in line to help. So just so you know where we stand is we truly do care about the community. That is our client base, but also we really enjoy the fact that we can bring great quality food at reasonable prices for the community to be able to enjoy on a regular basis, right? So with that being said, I really enjoy this area. We came a long way. We had another Hopcat space down in Florida, and very successful. It's doing really well. So I just want to thank you guys for considering us to do this. And I'd like to do my Christopher Walken cowbell story. 2 mice fell in the bucket of cream. 1 mouse quickly drowned. The second mouse churned that cream into butter and walked out, and I am that second mouse. Oh, yes. I was cruising around. I saw the cowbells. I knew there was something.
There's something.
What do we got?
Questions? Commissioner Dubak?
I think this all looks great. Just a couple questions.
Sure.
One, I see you're primarily going to be doing DJ on the dance floor, but sometimes live music. Is that just a really rare thing? DJ's not. As a personal question, DJ's not my style.
With the markets kind of decide, right? So, if it's allowed, we'd love to have, live entertainment. We do it at our stores in Florida. And, I think it's that area, right, where I think that especially, just local live entertainment, not bringing in, huge names, but, locals. I mean, we can, maybe help grow their name, right, for the area. We're hoping to be a pretty strong venue for the area. And maybe one day it might be like the Stone Pony, if you guys are familiar with that.
Cool.
All right?
That'd be great to see some live music here from time to time.
Why not?
Like that.
Go ahead.
Other question, so awesome to see this investment. I know that, kind of service industry has been struggling a little bit with staffing. I'm glad to see y'all are optimistic, and especially about our city. Just wondering, do you have a strategy, are you going to be hyper wage competitive? I mean, it's a big space, you're going to have to staff up, making sure you have high quality staff that are going to be able to work for you there.
Sure. So we were way ahead of, the minimum wage thing, right? So we never really had a staffing issue, even through COVID and reopening. People that have been with me for 12 years, right? So that says a lot about what we do, right? People don't leave, they come on board, and it's like the only way I can really scale is to just keep going and growing. So my thing is, I tell my guys, start training your replacement. We're going to Palm City. Start training your replacement. We're going to Royal Oak. Where's that? Don't worry. Bring a coat. Right? Seriously, 2 coats.
Did I say palm tree? I meant pine tree.
That's great to hear. Well,
so yeah, without a doubt, we're going to bring a team up here to train. We'd like to try and hire some people here, bring them to Florida to train. So we're ready to go day one. No learning curve, just right at it. Right, so we've gone through plenty of bad openings that we kind of have we have it somewhat down. There's always going to be issues, but we're pretty confident that there's going to be people that are going to want to come on board with us. It's a great environment.
Welcome to Royal Oak. Wish you great success.
Thank you. Guys, thank you.
And out of all fairness, there's a couple more questions. I have seen Commissioner Dubak dance both with DJ music and acoustic music.
It's not there's better.
Yeah, well, I definitely, for the sake of well-being of everybody in this community, if he's around, try to switch to acoustic. I'm just going to make that on the record.
They invented techno here, right? Detroit techno, we might have a new sound.
I think we had a couple more questions, right? Do we have some? I think Commissioner Hunt, you had your.
Yeah, just one quick question.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I'm excited for this restaurant. I think it's. Oh, thank you. I think it's going to be a great restaurant, but I see that in your the rooftop outdoor area. There's going to be 2, and they're weather permitted. The first floor outdoor area, is that going to be year-round, or is that weather permitted as well?
I think we're gonna have to find out. I mean, truthfully, from what I understand, it gets cold here.
Allegedly.
But then I was also told if there's sun out and the sky is clear, people are drinking outside. So
So you're anticipating the enclosures or anything?
no.
Okay.
Actually, to be honest, I don't want to probably throw that out there, but it is kind of rough looking, those outdoor enclosures. Just saying. Just saying. We run a class act, and I really like for you guys to, like I said, I like my community, and I like for that community to, look pretty clean all the way around.
Sure.
Right?
Any questions down on this end? Mr. Colo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I read through the packet. I'm excited for this new restaurant. Can you explain to us the concept and the food just a little bit more, and what a night's like at your restaurant?
Sure. So, it's such a mix at all of our stores, right? So, it's a mix of everything, young, middle-aged, older clientele. But one thing's for certain is that, people love carbs, right? So that's what we do, right? Handmade pasta made basically in front of you. You can see the pasta being made, so there's no, lying about it, right? A lot of times they say, yeah, we make it in the back, and the reality is, you need to see it. So it's just handmade pasta, something special about it. We've learned how to scale that to reach a number of people, right? It's things that just people don't do. It's very old world style with a really, fun, glammed up style Italian restaurant. It's not your mom and pop Italian restaurant. It has a bit of a corporate feel and just a really cool vibe about it. So the food is great. It really is. Everything, again, nothing's like store bought. We make everything fresh by hand. Our crew from Florida is going to come up and teach a whole new crew over here. We like to get younger people, maybe fresh out of school, show them the ways. People that want to get into the restaurant industry, you come with me, you're good for life, right?
Great, thank you. I'll be one of those people sitting outside in January with a blue sky on your rooftop.
My man, we'll toast to that. Good deal.
All right. Anybody else? Yeah, just one housekeeping. Just if you could state your name for the record, so our clerk
I'm
can
sorry.
get it in the.
Pasquale Lamara, Port St. Lucie,
Perfect.
Florida. Maybe soon to be Royal Oak, Michigan. I don't know.
Yeah, Mr. Lamar, we just want to make sure it's on record, just so our clerk's taking the notes, so it's good.
Pasquale Lamara.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Got it.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Yeah, I just want to say, it sounds like a really cool concept. I think you've picked excellently here in Royal Oak. If you haven't noticed, we got a lot of stuff going on.
Yep.
And I think right there on 5th Street, it's a really cool opportunity, very unique building, great concept you guys have. 5th Street we've had closed down for a while now, and we look forward to figuring out what that looks like on a permanent basis. So as you get your feet wet in the area, we'd love to hear your input on that as well. And I think that you're going to find just within walking distance, there's tens of thousands of people that migrate towards town, and we're always looking for good quality places to dine and have fun and sometimes dance.
Right. Well, for sure.
Awesome.
I'd like to really dig in with you guys about what we could do to improve things moving forward. Right.
Well, thank you for being here tonight.
You
Mr.
got it.
Lamar.
My pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
Oh, no.
If I may, just one
Yeah,
word.
sure.
My name is Jordan Siegel. I'm from Madden Hauser. I'm legal counsel to Pistaio. And I just wanted to put on the record that we want to say thank you to the Royal Oak Police Department. Their professionalism in this application process has been outstanding. And personally, as a Royal Oak resident, I appreciate it very much. I was one of those 29% who voted recently. And so thank you as well.
Mr. Gill, thank you for that feedback. We really appreciate it. All right. Oh, I see two eager hands down here. I'll go with Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the resolutions.
A motion by
Presented.
Commissioner Colo, second by Commissioner Dubak. All right, discussion. Seems pretty straightforward. All right, no discussion on the motion. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck. The fun is just beginning. At least you came here on a beautiful day from Florida. You know?
I leave before Thursday.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Item 9, approval of Planning Commission recommendation for zoning ordinance text amendments, maximum permitted building heights, first reading. Mr. Twing, how are you tonight, sir?
Good. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, members of the Commission. You do have a recommendation from the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on these amendments at its August, I believe, 10th meeting of this year. They're pretty simple as far as the changes that are being proposed by the Planning Commission. They are basically recommending the maximum height in several zoning districts be raised from 30 feet to 36 feet. That includes the multifamily residential zoning district, the office service zoning district, neighborhood business 2, as well as in the mixed use 1 and mixed use 2. The added provision in mixed use was to eliminate the bonus provision as a setback and simply put a maximum height at 56 feet. You will notice in the staff report that staff wasn't 100% sure of the direction of the Planning Commission when it regarding the general business zoning district. The staff report that went to the Planning Commission had it going from 30 feet to 56 feet. It wasn't, from our review of the tape of the meeting, wasn't included in the motion, although we are suggesting that that be added at this time to go from 30 feet to 36 feet in general business in order to be consistent with all the other similar districts. I would point out general business is probably the highest intensity district along Woodward and others. So that's the recommendation from the Planning Commission with the one caveat from staff regarding general business.
Mr. Twing, just to be clear, these changes, I know a lot had been discussed at our Planning Commission meeting, and this has nothing to do with putting multifamily housing in single-family residential neighborhoods. This is strictly taking the existing plots and zoning districts and saying, okay, if a multifamily house or unit is allowed, we can go from 30 feet to 36 feet. And I think a lot of the discussion there was to not necessarily to add an extra story, but to add height. A lot of the ceilings, heights, people are looking for 12-foot ceilings, 10-foot ceilings, things of that nature. And I think that was what we're strictly dealing with today, just to be clear. And I see them, those are the only things highlighted, but I don't know if, you know what I mean?
There is no change in uses in the zoning district. It's just the dimensional requirement in those districts. As I said, the standard now is pretty much across the board at a maximum height of 30 feet. The Planning Commission, if you had a chance to go back through the history of the links in the report, almost a year ago, looked at all of the developments that have occurred since 2002, and most of those exceed the 30-foot requirement. So I think the discussion was how to deal with that without needing variances and needing other sorts of steps. And from a staff perspective, if you're going to constantly grant variances or special exceptions, then the ordinance provision is too restrictive or wrong, and you should modify it. So it's simply addressing that issue. And I think if you had the chance to go back through all of those, you'll see what the Planning Commission dealt with several issues, and this is one of that's come forward.
What year was that? You said you went back to 2002?
I want to believe the report where all the attachments is August of 2019. The Planning Commission.
No, but I mean, when did staff go back to look at all the exceptions to the height where they all went above 30? You went as far back as?
Oh, we did that as part of that report at the August 2019
Yeah, I know.
meeting.
What year was that though? You went back to?
Yeah, we went back through all the files that have been approved since 2002 and put in the summary of them.
Okay. Doesn't seem that long ago, but geez, 19 years ago. You guys are getting old. All right, Commissioner Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. This issue came out of or kind of coalesced in a joint meeting between the Zoning Board and the Planning Commission. A number of ideas came out of that, a number of proposals came out of that, and the Planning Commission did indeed consider and take no action on some of the ideas that came out of that discussion. One of the proposals was reducing the amount of parking spaces required in multifamily buildings. Another one was reducing multifamily setbacks when those multifamily developments are in a commercial zone. And the planning commissioners looked at those, listened to public comment, and decided to take no action on those because they felt those were of a nature that would be more appropriately dealt with in a master plan. The switch to 36 feet is, as Mr. Twing describes, it reflects contemporary design standards. It reflects the expectations of customers, of prospective tenants and buyers in condo buildings, that they're looking for that greater height, especially on the first floor where you want a lobby that is lofty, you want public spaces that have that sense of height and grandeur. So those are really the only things that we thought we needed to address now, mainly because applicants come to us for a variance and you know, for their for a multi-family building. The only thing they may need is increased height, and yet they have to then go to the zoning board just to get those extra 6 feet of height. So this is really a small change in the grand scheme of things.
Right. And actually, if you think about it, since 2002, it's not a change at all, really.
Right.
I mean, when you think if you've been granting those various for all the zoning board for all of those logical reasons and all the petitions and all the wisdom they've had, again, it doesn't seem that long ago, but geez, 19 years. Wow, we've been doing that. Commissioner Macy.
I was married in 2002, so it definitely feels like it was yesterday, but I guess it was not. So Commissioner Douglas, I think, addressed part of what my concern about this is, but I think my concern is wrapped up in exactly that, is that this was one of the sort of examples that we were given to as to why we needed to have a master plan, is that we keep giving the same variances all the time on issues like height and setbacks, which indicates that our zoning is out of alignment with our vision of the city, and that's why we're doing a master plan process to go through that again and bring it into alignment. And so given that, the fact that we're spending this money and we're launching the master plan process, I'm really reluctant at this point to make a minor change to zoning. I feel like we've decided that we're going to do this whole cloth, and doing it piecemeal right before we get started on that process doesn't make sense to me. I understand from what Commissioner Douglas said that this is something that seemed like so mundane to the planning committee, but I think this is the sort of thing that residents would be interested in learning about and giving their input into, and probably we're going to come out in the same place. But actually maybe we'll find out from residents that they'd be happy to make it 38 feet, or I'm not sure. But to me, I feel like I don't understand why we're doing piecemeal changes to the zoning regulations the same year that we're working on a master plan.
Commissioner Douglas?
So by the time we get through a master plan and the subsequent redesign of our zoning ordinance, it's going to be 2 years from now. We see multifamily developments at the Planning Commission and commercial developments for mixed use and zoning 1 and 2 on a regular basis. So this is a housekeeping item that lets us be more development friendly in a modest way over the course of the next 2 years until we revise our zoning ordinance and our zoning map for that matter.
Commissioner DeBuck.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Macy's concern, but I agree with Commissioner Douglas that that's a year, 2 years away before we've completely rewritten the master plan. And what I see here is essentially a blight removal tool that we'd be putting in place to make these properties that I think people living in the neighborhoods adjacent would like to see some of these properties revitalized. And this is one of the barriers to that we can remove right now, that I think there's broad agreement that this is not an extreme measure, but will go a long way toward making those properties more appealing to someone that's going to put something more visually appealing and more useful there for the residents and for visitors to the city. So I'm fine supporting this.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I appreciate Commissioner Macy's point too, but like Commissioner Douglas said, a lot of the things with setbacks and stuff, I mean, sometimes they come up and you get some really crazy things and all of that, but the primary thing as we look at folks coming in is, the height. I mean, we're constant for 19 years we've been, because it made sense, and we get very little, I can't even remember much protest. I mean, people will come out and say, I don't like this project for this and this and this reason, but it's typically not related to the height at all, like, to go 36 feet. In fact, it makes a nicer building, a nicer design. So what you're saying is right. I think, though, if there is going to be one exception, it's probably this one here, given the fact of the past pattern. And, like Commissioner DeBuck said, it is since every other community is competing for projects, this is kind of something, an extra hurdle that we put folks through that we approve anyways, it seems, consistently at planning and zoning, or at zoning, I should say. Commissioner Perush?
I appreciate what you're saying too, but I'm not so sure that the language of the master plan in terms of the height issue is this specific as to be 30 feet or 36 feet. I think, and I could be totally wrong, I haven't looked at the master plan in a while, but it may talk in, and I'm sure it does, talk in general terms about making sure that the height of multifamily buildings and commercial buildings that are adjacent to residential neighborhoods is proportional so that the residential neighborhood doesn't feel dwarfed, yada, 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 all of that broad policy type language. But I'm not so sure that the language of the master plan would draw down and be as specific to say, yeah, 36 feet is better than 30 feet or vice versa. I could be wrong, but I don't think it gets that specific. But when you develop the master plan, then you turn to your amending your zoning ordinances, and that's when you get down into the real nitty-gritty specific little, well, the setback has to be 12 feet here and 10 feet here and no there, and the height, this kind of stuff. So I think that this is an appropriate time to do this because we're talking about very specific height, measurement type things. And we'll revisit, I'm sure, the whole height issue when we do the master plan. But I think in that discussion, it'll be a little broader, but not quite so specific as to specific dimensions for specific types of developments in zoning districts. So that's why I'm comfortable with going ahead with this evening.
Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I completely agree with Commissioner Macy. I feel that this right now is just, it might be the wrong time. And I'm just worried about a amount of thought might have gone into this. Often at this table, we hear an argument, especially with the mixed use 1 or mixed use 2 area, of when talking about a building height, well, that could have been an office behind them and that would have been allowed X height. Well, right now, as this is written, it could be 56 feet in mixed use 1 and mixed use 2. I absolutely can't vote for something tonight, which we have 56 feet of allowable height. And I think that's something we should look at. So if that was taken out, I'm a little bit more comfortable with the 36 versus 30 in multifamily zones, but I think the mixed use 1 and mixed use 2 56-foot option is just something we should look at and probably take out of this tonight.
Commissioner Hunt.
I just have a question for Mr. Twain really quickly. This is an amendment to a text amendment to an existing ordinance, so there's no need for, oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Falling down on your job, sure. This is an amendment to a text amendment to an existing ordinance, so there's no need for notice to residents within 300 feet, is that correct?
That's correct. There was notice put in the paper because it was a text amendment for the planning commission meeting. If this body wanted to hold a hearing, you could, and we'd put notice in the paper again. But because it affects an entire district, we'd be basically given notice to the entire city, and there is no requirement in the state statute to provide text amendment notice to properties.
Also, I kind of to speak to Commissioner Colo's point, the 30 to 36 height differentiation is kind of still within the same character of 30 to a 36, but from 30 to 56 is such a huge difference. Can you explain the necessity for such a wide variation between those?
Sure. Well, the planning commission had the ability to grant greater height under mixed use 1 and mixed use 2 if it found certain things and if there was some additional setback for the building. So going from the developer would have a right to build to 36 feet. In order to go to 56 feet, the planning commission, as part of their review and notice, would have to make a determination on three things: that it's not impacting the neighborhood, that it's adding the support and redevelopment, and that it's consistent with the objectives of it. So the planning commission doesn't have to allow them to go to 56 feet. They could, but it would be on a case-by-case basis. And they already have a little bit of discretion in terms of that height right now in the current provisions.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any motions? Commissioner Douglas?
So I would like to move, I'm scrolling, move approval of the resolution with the addition of adding, or the modification of adding the 36-foot height limit to general business. Mr. Twing, is that the one that we overlooked?
But the resolution that's included in your commission packet includes all of them.
Okay, good. Then I would move to approve that resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas, second by Commissioner Dubak. Discussion on the motion? Commissioner Colo.
I'd like to amend that motion to remove any reference to 56 feet.
Okay, we have a amendment proposed and moved by Commissioner Colo. Is there a second? Okay, for lack of second, the motion dies. We're back to the original motion. Any discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
I think that was 2 noes. Okay. All right. So that brings us to item 10, which is the approval of responsible contractor ordinance, second reading.
Okay.
Mr. Brady.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Fournier and City Commissioners. So bringing back for your consideration the responsible contractor ordinance that was discussed at the October 11th meeting. Since that time, we've had an opportunity at a staff level to look at the implementation of the ordinance and ultimately coming up with the administrative rules that would come back for your additional consideration and approval. One of the issues that has been identified in the scope of public construction contracts is that a prime contractor may or may not identify subcontractors. And as part of this consideration, that we're suggesting that there's an allowance that any subcontractor where the scope of the work is 20% or less, that they would be excluded from the ordinance. As I emphasized before, when I introduced this ordinance, this is meant as to really an introduction to help us to learn and adapt. As I described to you before, if you recall, we have about 30 type of projects that would qualify under this arrangement, which consist anywhere from $13 to $15 million of building roads, sewer lines, water lines, things of those natures. So as we gain experience and proficiency at this, it is my intent to bring this back and make it broader, to include many different elements. But to ensure the success of this program, we're really aimed at the larger employers that are doing these projects, and that they comply with the ordinance. It's critical as we adopt this now that this is the time of year where, namely the engineering department, they're gearing up for the construction projects for 2022. So it's important that we have all those specifics right now as we look at putting together the bid specifications. One other item I should mention, I'd be remiss if I didn't point this out. Some contracts that have been approved have included multi-year. And so for those contracts that have been approved prior to presuming that you adopt this would be exempt from this, but all new contracts that are approved post the adoption of this ordinance would have to comply with the ordinance. So this is, as I indicated in the recommendation, it's good, sound public policy. It gives us additional information on top of what we have required before, but looking for a sustainable construction type of labor force that will endure with the demands. There's certainly a shortage in the construction field, and also that would enable where those individuals behave, where the contractor would provide that information on the fringe benefits that they provide those employees. So I'm being very careful. Under Michigan law, we do not have the ability of requiring prevailing wage. But nevertheless, we can ask for information from these employers. How do you treat your employees? And so it provides a better product, better quality, better workmanship on these construction projects of the work that they're performing for the city. So this is presented for your consideration. And again, once the rules are written, we will be revisiting this topic here in the next month or so for your consideration, final adoption, then we'll get to work on this.
So one quick question. The subcontractor, 20%.
Yes.
So if you have a contractor that gets a $5 million contract and they have 4 subcontractors, each at $1 million, or let's just say $999,999, then are there loopholes within that context that they can exempt things? Or is it 20% in total of the entire contract, all vendors? How does that mathematically, can you provide some clarity to that?
Well, it was really meant in the context if you're looking at a smaller amount, because we have a floor of $250,000.
Okay.
So in that instance, you're talking about a subcontractor of $50,000 or less.
Okay.
If there's a greater comfort, generally what the city engineers indicated to me is that the projects are typically around $1 million. But if you'd rather have a dollar amount minimum, that is fine as well. We want to create some de minimis value where there's not this additional work that could hurt the contractor from attracting a good subcontractor because of these additional requirements for really a small portion of work. So whether it's a percentage or if you wanted to set a minimum dollar amount, so if we do have that $5 million project, then it is a significant amount of work that the subcontractor is doing. So that was really what the intent is. But a dollar amount would certainly be fine as an alternative.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes, I was going to raise that same issue, that we perhaps set while this kicks in at $250,000 for any contract or subcontract over any contract over $1 million, where the subcontract would be potentially $200,000, that we then require establish the same requirements for those subcontractors. And my $1 million was arbitrary, but we might be able, as a commission, to agree on a threshold where they're no longer exempt from that exemption.
But the math still works if you had 4 $250,000 contractors for $1 million bid, subcontractors. I guess, most contractors do their work, but, you could have potentially, exempt from the process, if the contractor's doing 200,000 of their own work and 800,000, for individual subcontractors doing a total of 800,000 at 200 each, then you're really only looking at the responsibility on 200 grand, not the other 800, right?
Yeah.
So there has to be an either and or type situation in there, greater than, equal to type thing I'm sensing.
Yeah, and whatever your desire is, additionally, the motion, I would say to allow the city attorney to review those final amendments that carries out the intent. So we're not bringing that back a third time. So, but we understand where you're coming from.
Maybe there's a cap on the total amount of 10% of the contract capped and not to exceed a certain amount per contract or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, folks are very clever in this industry, and, you know, their brother's a subcontractor, you know, brother LLC, you know? I mean, you can do some things, and he has a license from Indiana.
Right, so we don't want to inadvertently create some workaround. That is not the intent.
Right.
But if there's
What you're trying to do
smaller
is say,
value.
yeah, you're trying to say, let's get the bulk of it out of the gate, make it, you know, let's not make it overwhelming to begin with, and then just have learnings. And I think
Right.
we're on board with that. I just think,
Okay.
to the extent that loophole, we can cancel out loopholes ahead of time, that would be great. Any other discussion?
Do we need a motion on that?
Or are you just giving us, like, what's your thought? Yeah, I mean, what do you need from us tonight?
Well,
on this?
I would say approval of the ordinance with the additional changes subject to the review of the city attorney. And if it's anything substantive, we'll bring it back. But incorporating that language, and if you give the authorization for the city attorney to make those additional language changes as discussed.
Commissioner Douglas?
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. All right, discussion?
Got that, Noah?
Commissioner Dubak?
Sure. This is good public policy on first reading. It's still good public policy. I appreciate the thoughtful approach that we're not biting off more than we can chew. We learn, we're going to continue to build it and make sure we're getting the best value for every public dollar that we spend. So thanks again for bringing this forward.
Okay, absolutely. You're welcome.
Anybody else? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, this brings us to item 11, which is our last item tonight, which is approval of emergency ordinance to establish a temporary moratorium to prohibit the keeping of non-domestic animals. First reading.
Okay.
Mr. Bray.
So based on the presentation that was made at the October 25th meeting, a neighborhood-specific issue that occurred, the recommendation that I made at that meeting, the presentation, was to take a robust approach at looking at our regulation of non-domestic animals and to look at making appropriate changes. In order to engage different constituencies and individuals that could represent different interests, this could be a lengthy process. In the meantime, the police department, going back to this neighborhood issue of the owner giving some thought of bringing back these African caracal cats and acknowledging this not having specific regulations that prohibit it. Was the consensus of staff of bringing this moratorium. Now, this is emergency ordinance, so I'll defer to the city attorney. Because of the nature of this is a single reading. So by imposing a moratorium that it's approved and it's implemented immediately. There is a hard copy that was left at the dais here. And the only change is it refers to the term of this, so it would be starting effective immediately for the next 6 months, and periodically, if that subsequent ordinance is not brought, then we'll revisit this for consideration of extending out. There was one of the commissioners spotted that we didn't have birds of prey, so we don't want to pick on any parrots here, but so we have very specifics here to include, so that's highlighted on page 2, that refers to hawks, eagles, vultures, owls, and other animals that I believe, I don't know if it's a consideration that they're essentially carnivores. But we make that distinction. But it's very specific on all the other different species and alike of reptiles and hybrid dogs and alike that are not regulated by the state of Michigan. There could be some animals that are, but just to make this all inclusive, that we have this exhaustive list. And so if if we do have an issue of the caracal cats returning back to the community, then we have the ordinance that prohibits specifically that type of animal, and for that matter, also prohibits any breeding or any other activities that would. Again, this pertains to the other important part. It's in residential zone areas only. So we're not talking that wouldn't impact any commercial operation. Obviously, it would have nothing to do with the Detroit Zoo. So just making that very, very clear that we are not. Yeah. So we're not doing anything to that would hinder their operations. So it's specifically in residential areas that this is pertaining to. So this is presented for your consideration, but if there's any technical questions that I'm sure Mr. Leal can address any of the particulars, but we are looking at, if adopted, this would become effective immediately.
So I have two questions. One, if this becomes affected, what happens if people have a ferret today? All of a sudden, are they banned from, having that ferret? Or if they have a boa constrictor, how does that work? Or is it just the reintroduction of those animals coming to the community?
Well, it's twofold. It's the reintroduction of those animals into the community, but more importantly, it gives the police department and the animal control officer additional tools in their tool bag.
Yeah.
And if there is a neighborhood problem where you have an animal that especially becomes loose, and they're looking at charging the individual, that it empowers our public safety officers to much more effectively enforce. So this is not implied as that, put everyone on notice, we're going to go door to door and take an animal count. That's just, first off, physically impossible. That's not the intent, nor is it meant to someone who's a responsible pet owner of a neighbor they may not like it, of causing some problems. But it's more, this is really intended as the not so responsible pet owner. I know that there's people that have good intentions, but in this case of the specific instance, the animal got loose. And they weren't able to find it for 2 days, I believe, and the chief can correct me if I'm wrong. And that caused a problem. So we don't know what the future holds, and so what I temper the remarks that I made at the previous meeting. We don't want to have a knee-jerk response. I think we want something very comprehensive. But in the meantime, if there are specific issues that do come up, whether it be this specific issue or another, we give our public safety officers the ability to enforce and resolve.
So my second question, I get all that. Will be curious to see what my colleagues think about it. When I see just ferret and boa constrictor, those are both animals I'm familiar with. To be fair, I have a cat and a dog. And sometimes I wonder if one of my 3 children is actually an animal or not, based on the room condition that I see often. Mm-hmm. But I love you all, my children. It's a joke. But like a ferret, I don't think that the community would have major outcry if somebody's ferret got loose. I think that's probably more like hawk bait than anything. And then the boa constrictors, I know, obviously there's the big anacondas. We've all seen, that movie. We're all, that would be a terrible situation. But, there's constrictors that are the size of, my arm that just kind of wrap around. And my little niece has one down in Virginia. Yeah. And they're, seemingly nice animals. I have no idea. Not my thing, but... but there's also things that I like to see that are absent, like chickens, of course, are absent on here, and a lot of people have potbelly pigs and all of that stuff, and that's absent. But the list here seems pretty broad.
It is. So livestock that's already included. There's an ordinance that does allow the keeping of livestock, but that's only in the instance that it's permitted, that they file an application with the city clerk's office. And if you recall, I think Ms. Hallis said that there's 30 plus, but this is over several years. In livestock, it's, they're 100% they're chickens, so we don't have anyone that's keeping a horse or, other barnyard animals and that sort. But getting back to the specific question about these particular animals, that if they can be harmful and say they have rabies and the like, and that's where you get into these what if sort of questions, and that's where really a comprehensive legislation would vet out all of those, as I mentioned. In this instance, what we're not looking at doing is eradicating these immediately, but if it does become a nuisance that the animal control officer is dealing with, and you end up splitting hairs, no pun intended, that, well, my animal's not on this list, you can't do anything about it.
Well, in that particular case, just on that note, and I'm sorry I'm taking the questions right now, but let's say Commissioner Colo has a pet ferret. He doesn't. Well, I don't know what he does and he does. I can't tell you for sure. But let's say he has a ferret. Let's just say I'm a sworn enemy of Commissioner Colo. And I say, yeah, even though we're not on going out and like patrolling and doing door knocks, if I say that Colo, you know, got to take him down. Got to take him down, you know. I'm going to call the cops and say, I saw Commissioner Colo on this front porch petting his ferret. What are you going to do about that? Then we'll clarify what that means. But, you know, he was petting his ferret, and then all of a sudden now, did the cops have to respond, Chief, and say, Colo, show me your ferret, you know? And then, like, they kick down his door and take the ferret? I mean, how does that work?
We most definitely would not. That type of, we're not required to respond to something like that. It would be, so I think City Manager's correct. It gives us a tool. I don't expect it to be exercised until we have a permanent ordinance in place. This is just kind of a safeguard, I suppose.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Those are my questions and thoughts of the minute. Commissioner Dubuck.
So, I don't know, I guess I'm a little confused / disappointed by this because we did discuss at our last meeting not having a knee-jerk response.
Sure.
This really feels like a broadsword that puts an unknown number of residents on the wrong side of the law, regardless of our intent. That's what it will do.
Understood.
And neighbor wars ensue, and I'm not aware of any boa attacks or bird of prey attacks, but I mean, there's dozens of dog bites a year, and that's by far a much greater problem that we've addressed via ordinance, you know, having a responsible dog warrant ordinance. I'm not sure what problem we're solving here. It feels like it's exactly what we talked about not doing last week, which is potentially creating problems to address this one event. And so it feels like a bit of an overreach to me. I mean, especially like so birds of prey, like they're here naturally in our city. I don't know how we can outlaw something that lives here.
Oh, I know, but you know, people keeping them as pets usually.
Sure, but I mean, wouldn't the wild ones be even a greater threat than the domestic ones?
So you're kind of caught in a difficult situation. We can't have an ordinance on one specific breed. But on the other hand, if we're going to call out this, then let's encumber all of these different animals that people do possess. So again, as the chief indicated, this isn't something. First off, it has to be complaint driven, and there would have to be enough evidence where it poses a public safety hazard. Otherwise, just by virtue of keeping the ferret alone would be not enough to ticket someone. But if the animal has the ability of biting, causing harm, and alike, we're looking at avoiding the situation. So this is presented for your consideration. You know, we struggle with this, and the fact that that we don't have this reoccurring circumstance, and again, you know, this isn't to engage in the conversation and look at what is a proper wildlife management, if you will, and allow the circumstances where responsible pet owners can continue the enjoyment where there has not been a problem. So we're not looking, you know, presenting a solution looking for a problem. That's not the intent here. So, but to kind of outline, you know, what we struggle with, and that is a precursor of having a conversation that gets into the specific, I guess, nuances, if you will, of pet ownership. And the other element that was mentioned before is to prohibit someone from possessing these animals for breeding purposes. And that in itself becomes a huge problem right there. And so, again, you want to make that broad and encompassing enough that you spell out all these different breeds. So, but this is presented for your consideration, and so to let you know that there's dilemmas that go along with this. But on our way of the hope is that we do produce very good public policy, and we have a very good policy that was established long ago on dangerous dogs and has been quite effective to deal with those situations. Ordinarily, that's what the animal control officer deals with. It's those type of animals. It's not these extreme sort of circumstances. So we're not going to be doing a house-by-house search for boa constrictors what are lurking out there that we may not be aware of. So.
We'll go with Commissioner Colo, then Commissioner Macy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have two quick things. The first one is, if this does pass tonight, I just want to make sure from the city attorney, looking at our last agenda item, I happen to have the zoning map up, and the zoo is zoned one family. So I want to make sure that the zoo is not in the wrong zone so that we don't prohibit reptiles at the, amphibian bill. So that's one thing to look at. But another thing, hearing some of the conversation down here, it sounds like a compromise here might be to take section 3 and just eliminate D, E, F. So essentially we're just dealing with big dogs and big cats. I think we can all agree up here right now, it's a bad idea to have wolves and lions as pets. And then we can, in the future, continue, we have a 6-month term here, and we'll use those 6 months to further define our dangerous animal ordinance in the meantime.
So you're suggesting like the dangerous dog ordinance you would eventually update with, more than just dangerous dog, it'd be dangerous animal ordinance, and then list those animals in there that we feel are dangerous animals.
That could be a way to go.
Or any animal, more broadly, that exhibits similar behavior. So is it different than if you have a ferret that is attacking people at the park because it keeps getting loose? I don't know, I'm making that up, but that would be no different than a dog that like Cujo, I think is the name of the dog. Isn't it that movie where the dog's like gone crazy? Any animal could fall into that as if it's exhibiting the behaviors and if the owner isn't keeping that dog. But then again, you get a lot of families where, sloppy kids, doors open, and then the big friendly Labradoodle runs out. I'm not suggesting this happens at the Macy household, because Labradoodle is a very popular dog. Is it dangerous? Probably not. Is it out? That's an issue. You know what I mean? Okay, I'm sorry. Commissioner Macy, I jumped into your time.
First of all, Moby is a golden doodle, just to clarify.
In that case.
I was just going to suggest exactly what Commissioner Colo just suggested is removing D, E, and F, because I share the concerns that the mayor and Commissioner Dubuck said, and it seems to me like the purpose of this that we were trying to get at was the dangerous animals. And I totally agree that things like the birds of prey and members of the rodent family, like a skunk, I don't know why anyone would want to keep a skunk, but they're out there. They're in Royal Oak. It's not like the caracal cats, which are not native to this area. So it seems strange to me, although it seems like we're imposing our vision of what's an acceptable pet rather than looking at what's dangerous to the community. So I guess I'll make the motion that we move approval with removal of D, E, and F.
Okay, so your motion is to move forward with the temporary or emergency ordinance with the removal of D, E, and F classifications.
Correct.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Colo. Oh, question. Commissioner Hunt.
I did have a question for Mr. Briggs. You indicated earlier that this would typically be complaint driven.
Yes.
But as I read it, and maybe I'm missing it, the ordinance indicates that, it shall just be unlawful to keep, harbor, or possess. There's not necessarily anything about it being driven by
That's true.
complaint. So if you read it on its face, you're in violation of this ordinance without just holding on to this type of animal. So that's where my concern is lying in this ordinance.
Just the same that, it's to get into circumstances that would be encountered by the animal control officer. Honestly, in the past, I believe, and the chief can correct me if I'm wrong, that we've conducted dog censuses before, but I don't think we're going to be going through and taking a census of, descented skunks or other animals out there. So, again, from a practical perspective, from an enforcement side of things, just kind of being realistic with the resources that we have available. Sure, we could have the instance that was illustrated by the mayor, where someone is complaining about a neighbor that happens to keep one of these animals. But the fundamental question would be, is this animal, is it created a nuisance as a result? And is it just by merely possessing such an animal, is that the problem, or that animal getting loose and causing some harm? So, I'll leave it at that, and I believe the chief would like to speak to that and probably have some expertise in that regard.
I don't think it's intended to be strictly enforced, but the officers have discretion. So if we're in a home on a domestic dispute or something, they're not required then to take that kind of action. As a practical matter, animal complaints, if they're taken by the officer, they're reviewed by the animal control officer, so there's like a little stopgap there. So it's not going to be strictly enforced in that manner. We're just, if you come in there, we have the option to not do that.
And the way, if I read it real quick, just for clarification on that, I'll go to Commissioner Douglas. With the striking of D, E, and F, really what we're talking about are large cat animals now, large canine that are typically wild, like wolves, jackal, there you go, didn't think that would be on the list, but okay, jackals. And then any animal reasonably defined in terms of this section is a little bit more broader, like bears. And by the way, deer can be dangerous too, bucks, especially if they get used to humans. They can do some pretty nasty things. Monkeys, although really, really fun, can be very dangerous. And game fish, I'm not sure of, but okay. So then this would only be limited to those scopes. So therefore, if somebody called on a ferret or called on, even that matter, a crocodile, that wouldn't be an issue the way I'm reading as the motion has been presented. Correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Sorry, Commissioner Douglas.
So I think the escape clause here is in section 2 moratorium, where it describes a moratorium so as to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. So that ferret, in your basement is not threatening the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens, and that would be a reason for police to not respond when somebody rats their neighbor out.
Yeah, so as to is a very important 3 words in there, the way I read it. Commissioner Dubak?
I'm not one of the lawyers at the table, but that's the reason for the ordinance, not the enforcement trigger. And I don't know that there's people with tigers in their basements. If there are, or someone that has a wolf in their basement, today they weren't breaking the law and tomorrow they are, it just doesn't seem like good public policy to flip the switch like that without like a phase-in period. Like if someone does have a lion that has not bothered anybody, which would be news to me, we should give them a week or 2 to make accommodations for that lion before they're on the other side of the law. And maybe that's a ridiculous concern because maybe no one in the city has a panther in their basement.
So a question on that, maybe is there an amendment that could be put in place that says for any, as of this date, any animal that, during the course of this, I don't know, so you're just dealing with new ones, or?
Part of the problem would be proof.
Yeah.
As a prosecutor, how would I be able to demonstrate that the animal was brought on the date after the ordinance became effective? It becomes the defendant's word versus the state's.
Commissioner Colo?
In section 1F, the moratorium could start 10 days from today on the 18th. Or 5 days, 4 days, however long Commissioner Buck needs to get rid of his lion. I've been in your basement, I know what you're hiding.
I heard it was a purple gorilla. Commissioner Pruish?
I don't mind removing subsection D and subsection F. I'm a little reluctant to eliminate subsection E. I would think that who knows whether or not anybody's got a crocodile or an alligator or a boa constrictor or a rattlesnake in their house, but you know, I think if they happen to get out for whatever reason or however, I would like some enforcement ability to get them back and get them out of there. D and F I don't have any problems with. I can see that's really not necessary. But I would really like to keep E in.
So I'm kind of feeling the same way with the exception of the constrictor language. Most of the constrictors you can't determine by size. I don't think they pose an as immediate threat. I mean, it'd be very rare that we'd have like a very large constrictor. And that would be, you know, there's probably more likely if you want to put people on the bad or on the wrong side of the law. I would venture to guess there's a lot of people with boa constrictors, the small ones here, you know, that are 2-3 feet long in the city. But the venomous snakes, you know, I've been to Malaysia, I've been to Penang, like the king cobra capital of the world, and let me tell you, you don't need coffee to wake you up in the morning if you come across one of those things on a nature hike. So, you know, if one of those got loose, I mean, they stand 5 foot tall. That's a pretty scary, dangerous, immediate, you know, harm to the community, like death. So, even a small little coral snake, you know, I mean, someone's keeping from Florida. If it gets out and someone picks it up, you know, you're in big trouble. And so, and how would we have the antivenom here? It's not common. So I'm going on in detail, but some of the venomous snakes do kind of make me a little nervous not to include, but that's me. Yep.
Mr. Mayor, maybe a solution there should be take out in E, just say an inherently dangerous member of the reptile or amphibian family and leave it at that. And then that's an enforcement issue. So we're not defining it.
To specific varieties.
Yeah.
Yes, we're not. It sounds an animal that is dangerous.
Right. So if somebody has a venomous corn snake that's not dangerous to a human, but dangerous to a mouse, that's fine. But if it's a king cobra, that's probably a different issue.
So if that's the case, I could do that in motion, as well as adding in section 4 a statement that this does not impact the Detroit Zoological Society. I want to make sure our partners at the zoo do not have the same concerns we've had tonight, trying to figure out if this applies to them or not.
So you move for an amendment to add back in item E, but strike out specific species details and add into section 4 that the Detroit Zoological Society doesn't apply in that realm. Okay. Okay, that's seconded by Commissioner Macy. Okay, everyone understand the amendment?
Yep.
Any discussion on the amendment? All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, so now we have the motion, which is what we're presented here with the modification of E as we discussed, the modification of section 4 as we just discussed, and the elimination of D and F.
Mr. Mayor, I know there's discussion as to when this should take effect. It was drafted for the charter to take immediate effect upon passage. The charter does allow you to give it immediate effect, but does not require immediate effect. So there has been a question raised by one of the commissioners about possibly delaying the effective date for like a week to allow people to have notice of this ordinance before it goes fully into effect. I think you can do that under your charter if consensus of the commission wishes to go that route.
Mr. Mayor, may I? If
Yes,
the
Chief.
problem we're looking to solve, would that negate the problem we're looking to solve? we would do that. And I think that might actually force the issue if
Yeah.
they realize I got a window, so.
I
Okay.
know what he's putting down, and I kind of agree.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, that brings us to the end of tonight's meeting. Notwithstanding anything for the betterment of the people of Royal Oak, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion by Commissioner Perush. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion on this motion? All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion passes. We're adjourned, 9:03 PM.